All right, and welcome to Color of Phantom VCon 2026. We are lucky to have Michael G. Williams with us as our first interview of this year. And Michael is no stranger to Color of Fandom and no
Mhm.
stranger to VCon. So we have been just very, very lucky to have him join us. And I do want to give a bio for those of you who might not know it. I'm looking at the audience in Discord. Everybody knows you, Michael, but I still want to do an intro because you're just an extraordinary writer.
Oh,
So
well, thank you.
you'll see me looking over this way. Michael G. Williams writes queer horror and sci fi about outsiders finding their people and power, including Perishables, that won the Lane Cunningham Award, A Fallen Autumn, one of my favorites, that won the Manly Wade Wellman Award, and his most recent novel, Children of Solitude. He studied performance studies at UNC Chapel Hill and Appalachian Studies at Appalachian State University, is a trustee of the North Carolina Writers Network, and is a member of SFWA and HWA. Michael lives in Pittsboro, North Carolina, with his husband and a variety of animals. How many animals do you have?
We have four cats. We have one dog. Um, that's
Wow.
down from our peak. Our peak was two dogs and four cats.
Oh, yeah.
And we also have three, they're not ours.
Mhm.
Technically, if they were anybody's, they would be our neighbors. There are
Yeah.
three feral cats that live in our neighborhood that are like semi-feral.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that if they show up on our back porch and look cute, we'll bring them cat food. So
Yes.
they're kind of like, I refer to them as our country cousins because like our indoor cats know about them and they know about our indoor cats. And there's a lot of like staring back and forth. So we
Right.
have all of them.
Mhm.
Long-term plans maybe include chickens. We'll see.
You know what? I've been hearing that more and more from people getting chickens. And in our
Yeah.
neighborhood, we have, well, I know we have roosters because we hear them, but a lot of people have been talking about that. So
Yeah.
we'll just be joining
We,
the group.
yeah.
Yeah.
We used to live in Durham and we had a neighbor two doors down who had chickens.
Mhm.
She did not realize that those chickens were capable of getting over a chain link fence in like a suburban neighborhood. So they
Oh,
wound up roosting in our yard. And we didn't know that they were our neighbors' chickens. We
uh-huh.
thought that somebody had just like dumped chickens they didn't want anymore in our neighborhood and they'd wound up in our yard to the point where like we bought chicken feed and I was going out and feeding them in the mornings and stuff like that.
Oh,
And then
wow.
it turned out they were our neighbors, which was a huge relief. But but now we like live in Pittsboro and there are actually like chicken houses and stuff like that in our yard and all that because the people who sold us our house had chickens.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wow. Well, I thought I was doing a whole lot with one dog. So I think that's my limit right now. Well, Michael, one of the things that I love talking to you about are your books. And I love talking to you about horror and sci fi in general. I mean, we both share our love of Star Trek. You sent
Hmm.
me some ideas, what you would be interested in talking about. And once you sent me those, I was very, very intrigued. So I am so glad you sent me that. So I was thinking, I would love to ask you some questions related to topics that you sent me. And
Sure.
I want to kind of start off with a big one. And this
Okay, go
one
for it.
is related to you sent me a comment about horror being the modern heir to tragedy. Uh,
Yeah.
and so my question for you is, what does horror allow us to process now that classical, now that track? I'm sorry, let me ask that question again.
Sure.
What does horror allow us to process now that classical tragedy no longer can help us process?
Something that I never feel like I have a good way to phrase this.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say this, I'm not saying that I agree with this phrasing,
Okay.
but something that classical tragedy directly addressed was the idea of the inherent flaw and the
Mm-hmm.
way that that could lead to someone's undoing, the way that that could put a person at risk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I think that I don't buy the concept that we have characteristics that are inherently bad that make us bad people, the way that
Right.
tragedy often does, uh,
Mhm.
or did. But I do recognize that we do have inherent differences from one another. And the
Mhm.
ways that we get marginalized are often about the constructs that we have around those inherent differences.
Right.
And so, you think of like so much of classical tragedy is here's this person with this inherent flaw, and in so many of like if you think of like the Greek tragedies, and so often those inherent traits are something that is explicitly othering that person.
Mhm.
They are a foreigner from another land, or they are the child of the wrong person, quote unquote, or whatever.
Mhm.
And often they don't even know that they have this inherent flaw, and it still leads to their undoing.
Yeah.
And horror these days lets us talk about the differences that we do have and that we do experience, the different ways that we're viewed by the society around us, the different ways that we are treated by people, the ways that when people learn more about us, they act as though we are the ones who changed, when the
Mhm.
only thing that changed is what they learned about us. Um,
Mhm.
and the way that people use that as a justification for marginalizing and othering each other.
Yeah.
And I feel like horror gives us this way to talk about that experience of feeling like the outsider, of being treated differently, and the risks that are involved in that, the way that that increases someone's risk profile in society. So, horror, you think of like the 80s horror, you think of something like Sleepaway Camp,
Mhm.
which is foundational to the genre, but like viewed through today's lens with any degree of progressive view, it's
Yeah.
just like a horrible message. But it
Mhm.
is it is a version of that message of there is an inherent difference in this person, and that makes them it endangers them and it also makes them dangerous.
Right. Right.
And horror lets us talk about a lot of that can be very uncomfortable. It's not fun to talk about what it's like to be an immigrant in America right now.
Right.
It's not fun to talk about what it's like to be a non-white person in America right now. It's not
Mhm.
fun to talk about what it's like to be a queer person, to be a woman, to be a trans person. All of those experiences and identities where people are being actively mistreated based on characteristics that others are using to justify othering us.
Mhm.
And I think that horror lets us say, for so long, horror raised this question of if there's something about you that's different, then you are in danger and you are dangerous.
Right.
And we have been around as fans of horror long enough now to have become creators of horror and to
Mhm.
take those messages and turn them into our own tools and to start telling our own stories. And so now you get horror stories that are about the ways that otherness empowers a character.
Right.
Now you get stories about the ways that being made into an outsider gives someone advantages because they are able to spot red flags more easily. They have a
Mhm.
finer tuned sense of things here seem hinky and weird, and I'm out. You know, they also let us talk about the experience of being different. Horror is the only genre that takes the other and really
Mhm.
like puts it in the spotlight and then
Mhm.
starts asking questions about what is that like for that person? What is that like for the people around them? Are they
Right.
inherently bad, or is this just a result of how they've been treated? You know,
Right.
I think a classic example of that, even among classical literature, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Mhm.
From one view, sure, it's about a monster who kills a bunch of people. But from another view, it's about what happens when someone who wants love is denied love.
Right. Mhm.
And there's nothing inherently bad about the monster in Frankenstein, except that it is abandoned by the people who should have cared for it and denied the opportunity to seek its own happiness.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really powerful message. That's a really powerful thing for horror to get to talk about. We get to tell a lot of like really, really uncomfortable things about our own experiences through horror and
Mhm.
really like drag them out into the sunlight and expose them and and talk about the ways that our experiences are not good and also
Right.
about the ways that our experiences are good, you know.
Mhm.
And there aren't a lot of other genres that let us do that, that let us talk about the discomfort at the same time that we celebrate who we are.
And to me, and you kind of said this already, but the idea that, modern or horror today looks at systems where, tragedies, Greek tragedies, they were about the individual. The problem, just like you said, the problem with the individual, whereas today we can look at the problem with the system, the problem with the out, not the other, the problem with the mainstream in
Yes.
the problem, not the other. And we're able to show that, whereas that was not the case before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was always this very like top down, the establishment will tell you what is allowed and will demonstrate it by killing off everybody who does not conform to that
Mm-hmm.
approach in horror. And I feel
Yeah.
like we have been at this long enough that we have had the opportunity to turn the sock inside out on that story and start talking from the bottom up about this is what it's like to be us, and everybody else can kind of potentially literally go to hell.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you think about this idea, can horror fail as tragedy?
Oh, yeah,
And what does that
absolutely.
look like? What does it look like when horror fails as tragedy?
I'm going to try to think of a specific example,
Or
but
how?
oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, my immediate thought is anytime horror tries to reinforce those conformity messages today, anytime horror says that what makes us different is dangerous and is bad, and if we should feel bad and probably should be hunted for it.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime horror takes that the monster was the problem view, instead of recognizing that Frankenstein was the problem.
Right.
Anytime that it says that somebody deserves what happens to them when they're the person with no power in the situation. I think
Mm-hmm.
when horror reinforces the established power dynamics in society, then that's bad.
Can you think of it could be a book, it could be a movie, a TV show that might have done something. I'm trying to think too, and I'm sure there have been plenty, but can't think of
It's
anything
one
off
of
my head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where 5 seconds after we're done, I'll be able to think of like half a dozen of them. I'm gonna have to work on horror movies that I thought were really lousy.
Yeah. Because really it's while you're watching it, you know it right when it happens. And soon as that happens,
Yeah,
no, I can't get on board with this story.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like
Well, I thought of one. It's not anything anybody's gonna be able to go read. Many years ago, a friend of mine was publishing an anthology. She wanted some help reading the slush pile. So and there was a story that she said specifically, I want you to read this story because I read it and I almost liked it, but then I all of a sudden kind of hit a wall and I couldn't like it anymore. And I want to hear if I'm misreading this or if this is something you also get from it. And it was a short story for an anthology about witches. And
okay.
it was really the first like third of it was a really strong, well written, interesting, engaging story. And it seemed like the trajectory for the narrative was going to be that this guy who is kind of, the product of a lot of mindless privilege
Mhm.
realizes his situation and gets a little more aware of the ways in which he has mistreated the people around him. And so I'm reading it and I'm reading it and I'm liking it. And I kept expecting it to turn into, and then, the people around him kind of like revealed their magic powers or whatever, or he discovered his magic powers and discovering magic powers made him realize that he too was different. I don't know. I was
Yeah.
figuring something like that. And
Mhm.
instead, it was about him gaining access to magic that he had not really like had to work for or earn, and then like cacklingly using that to take revenge on everybody around him who had made him feel bad for being the straight cis white guy.
Do you know what the messaging was supposed to be with that story?
It really felt to me like it was a guy who had been told that he was not mindful enough of the experiences and identities of people around him who were not like him, who
Mhm.
literally just decided to write a story where he got revenge against those people for telling him that.
Right.
And horror is always about a power dynamic, also. and anytime that power dynamic is in favor of the people who are already powerful,
Mhm.
I don't know. I just like I can't get behind that.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, we're seeing that. I'm in the field of education, and
Yeah.
with the changes, the horror, the real horror that has been in history, and this desire to want to change it to soften it a little bit,
Yeah.
um, to me, sort of echoes that idea of the oppressors or the ones who perpetuate the harm caused to others are being treated, and let's not make people feel so bad about them.
Hmm.
And so that at the expense of the people who are treated poorly. And so, unfortunately, that is a narrative that we see come up sometimes. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, this is one of those topics where you can dissect so many in so many different ways. I wanted to pivot just a little bit but I can
Hmm.
all of this can cross together.
Sure.
Also, you being a writer of queer horror, queer sci, would you say you write queer horror, queer
Oh,
sci-fi?
yes.
Would you say
Yeah.
that you are a queer writer of horror,
Yes.
sci-fi? Or would you say it's all of that?
I would take any of those, but
Okay.
generally, when I'm describing my stuff to people, like if I go to an HWA reading that our chapter puts together or something like that, then I usually introduce myself by saying that I write queer horror and queer science fiction.
Okay. Well, in thinking about that, because you also talked about wanting to talk about queer horror and queer sci-fi.
Hmm.
What does queerness? This is my question, and
Yeah.
and we're going to see where it goes from there. What does queerness do to horror? Not just in representation, but in structure, tone, or outcome.
So I think that for me, it
Hmm.
creates an opportunity to present characters who do not fall into a lot of the traps that horror often forces characters to fall into in order for the story to keep going. That
Hmm.
that thing I mentioned about like I like it when marginalized characters have a finer tuned sense for red flags.
Hmm.
I like to write stories where the queer characters are like, no, I have spent literally my entire life
Hmm.
surrounded by people who wanted to exterminate me.
Hmm.
So the fact that there's a slasher with a knife in the woods or whatever, the evil clown, the vampire, whatever, none of that's new.
Right.
And B, it's just a different flavor of the same cereal, like
Hmm.
it's the thing I've been eating every day for my whole life.
Hmm.
So I like it when queer characters especially react to the horrors, whatever form they take, by
Hmm.
saying, "Oh, great, same
Hmm.
garbage, different day."
Yeah.
I like it when they are a little more practical in their response to
Hmm.
that. We've been watching Sense8 lately because I never actually watched it when it first came out.
Hmm.
I just missed it. And there's a scene where a character who is in a lot of danger is
Hmm.
in their home, and
Hmm.
there's somebody about to come through the door, kind of surprising them.
Hmm.
And as opposed to all the horror tropes of like hiding under the table or whatever, running and
Hmm.
hiding in the closet, not to dig on Laurie Strode, but
Hmm.
all of that stuff.
Hmm.
Instead, she just picks up a knife off of the table in her kitchen and is like, "I will stab whoever comes through that door." And I
Mhm,
literally said aloud, like, "Yes, defend
mhm,
yourself."
mhm,
Like, and there's so much in a horror that's about people running away and hoping things get better.
mhm,
And I like it when queer characters react by saying, "No, I'm not going to run away and hope it gets better. We're going to deal with this problem."
mhm,
And I think that that's a different perspective from a lot of horror.
mhm.
So we're so familiar with the trope of like the girl getting chased through the woods and she keeps tripping and falling.
Yeah.
We're so familiar with the trope of the guy who doesn't get that there's a problem and thinks he's just going to go mano a mano with
Mhm,
Jason and be okay, or whatever. Um,
mhm.
all the teenagers who romance their way to death,
Yeah. The
like we
guy
have all,
always that one guy who would rather fight someone in his group. For some reason, he gets mad at the people in his group
yeah, yeah,
versus the external
yeah.
force.
And like those are all examples of a character whose reaction to the awareness that there is danger is to say, I'm accustomed to living in a world in which there's no danger.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to pretend that there's no danger until there's no danger again. I'm
Hmm.
going to choose to keep inhabiting yesterday and
Hmm.
hope that it like that today just goes away.
A very privileged standpoint, you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and I really like it when marginalized characters' reaction to that is, "Oh no, no, we're going to confront this and deal with it."
That was one of the reasons why I really liked Blackening, because you saw Black people the way we always say, we're not going to go to the horror. We were trying to survive.
Yeah, yeah.
I do, yeah, I definitely understand what you mean there. Um, does okay, are there, well, we were talking about some tropes, um, and you talked about, you're talking about this survival instinct and people either fighting it or knowing how to escape. Are there tropes that become more powerful besides the ones that we've talked about, that become more powerful or more problematic when viewed through a queer lens?
Hmm. I do think that the trope of the character who is suddenly stupid so that the plot can keep happening, I feel like that's much more problematic for marginalized characters because often marginalized characters in horror are the only representation of their identity. And it
Right.
becomes a statement, intentional or otherwise, it becomes a statement that everyone of that identity or everyone of that experience is kind of dumb.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people don't intend that to be the statement, but that is
Yeah.
always what I worry people will take from it,
Mm-hmm.
which is another great reason to have a broad diversity of identities and experiences in a story, and always have like more people than just one who is suddenly the diplomat for all people who are of that identity.
Right.
But that's really bothersome. Um, one of the tropes in horror that I really, 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 really despise is the character who either decides to do the ritual that they have been told will summon the bad thing,
Mm-hmm.
or interrupts the ritual that they've been told it's really dangerous for them to interrupt. We
Mm-hmm.
literally just the other night, we were watching the Nevermore collections online. Like we bought the streaming package for Nevermore,
Mm-hmm.
and we were watching one where that was the entire deal. Was that the character who didn't want the ritual to happen, then agreed to participate in it, tried to stop it in the middle. And we were
Mm-hmm.
just like, this entire movie is about telling this character, don't do that. Why is
Right.
that character doing that? Like, why are they suddenly this stupid? At the beginning of the movie, they got it. They were like, let's not do this.
Right.
And then, sure, they got talked into it. But
Mhm.
then, like, once they're committed, then they all of a sudden decided not to do it anymore. It felt very plotty,
Yeah.
instead of character driven. I
Hmm.
feel like really plotty tropes like that are
Okay.
bad when the character that they are undercutting is already undercut by who they are.
One of mine that drives me crazy is the sidekick or the best friend or whatever, where the main character has the opportunity for so many things, romance, heroism, all of these different things. The sidekick is the person that cannot get those things. It's impossible. And that
Yeah.
person's role is to help this other person get those things.
Yeah.
And so seeing it through any type of marginalized lens to me is this is the messaging that is given in society. And so,
Yeah.
I'm tired definitely of seeing that one.
But one that I think improves is the final them.
Mhm.
I really love the final they character in horror. And
Yeah.
I feel like the final they is always something that queer people can identify with.
Hmm.
Because, at the end of the movie, they're standing there surrounded by whatever, dead
Hmm.
demons, decapitated bodies, whatever the problem has been the whole time. And they know, A, there's no way this is over.
Hmm.
And B, nobody's going to believe me.
Hmm.
They are going to have to walk through life with their incredibly messed up experience that they've just had forever. They're never
Hmm.
really going to be able to set it down. Nobody's ever going to really understand what they've gone through except other people who have
Gone
had that
through.
experience.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like there's something really powerfully queer in that.
Hmm.
Really powerful that any marginalized identity can look at and see themselves in and
Hmm.
say and feel validated by. Because
Hmm.
like the thing that I find wild is the way that marginalized people experience feeling endangered at all times, basically, or
Mhm.
in many circumstances at any rate. And we all have to like get up and go to work tomorrow anyway. Like
Mhm.
we don't get sick days for this,
Right.
you
Right.
know. I think of like one of my favorite franchises is Hatchet.
Okay.
Um, and there's it is a very silly franchise.
Never seen it. Yeah, I've just never seen it. Yeah.
It relies on some tropes that are maybe not great,
Okay.
but it does so in service to saying like, is there a really meaty story to tell, even at the heart of the silliest possible horror
Mhm.
movie?
Mhm.
And there's a final girl in that series of movies for whom all three movies take place in the span of like 24 hours.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Eh,
three are at the same time. They're happening at the
Like
same.
there's like one movie ends and then the second movie like starts like 5 minutes later.
Oh, okay.
And then
Wow.
the third movie starts like the next morning,
Oh.
you know? And by that second day, she
Mhm.
has this look on her face of like, A, none of you know what I've been through. B,
Mhm.
you'd better hope you never do. C, I know you all think I did it. And
Mhm.
D, I don't even care anymore. You know? And like there is just something about that that like by the end I was like, I love her so much. She
Yeah.
is such a powerful character. Or you look at like Ripley in the Alien series.
Mhm.
Those movies span something like 400 years outside of her experience. But for
Mhm.
her, it's all like 6 months.
Yeah.
And the way that that changes her, the way that she responds, the way that in each Alien movie, Ripley has been changed by the trauma of the previous one.
Right.
That's a really powerful story, but it's also very empowering. You know, I don't
Mhm.
know. It causes her to do things like like lash out at people,
Mhm.
but she's doing so as an act of self-defense.
Right. I
And
mean, she's trying to actually, at least in Alien, the first one and the second one, well,
yeah,
and the third one, really, she's trying to save people. I mean, she's saying,
yeah,
listen to me, I'm trying to help you. Now, by the fourth one, she's like, look, I don't know how many times I have to tell y'all, I died for this. Yeah, so I can't do it anymore.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
I
trying.
just, yeah,
Mhm.
there's something, uh, I don't know, there's something in horror that, and I don't know exactly how to like describe what the thought is in my head, but this is another part of the tropes that I find empowering. Um, when we think about so often in horror, that final day character gets perceived by the people around them as having been turned into this like bitter, maybe violent, messed up person. And the people around them expect them to change back into who they were before, and that
Right.
that is healing.
Mhm.
And I don't think that that's healing. And I
No.
think that what that's a comment on in good horror is that people who have only known privilege often see people who have been marginalized standing up for themselves as an attack
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
they don't understand that like the pie can get bigger. You know,
Mhm.
they think that all of society is a I've forgotten the term for it now, but that anybody who wins, if anybody wins, somebody else must lose. A zero sum game.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And they think that that privilege is a zero sum game. They think
Yeah.
that society is a zero sum game. And I think that when people respond to people like Sydney in the Scream movies,
Mhm.
increasingly withdrawing from society and
Yeah.
and becoming increasingly willing to do things like show back up in town with a gun and start looking for who is the killer or whatever. I'm thinking of the fourth one or the fifth one or something when I say that.
Mhm.
Um, then I think that that's portrayed in a lot of horror as, well, that person has like gone crazy.
Right. Mhm.
But that's because that's depicting that privileged perspective on somebody else deciding to no longer take what they
Mhm.
have been forced to take.
Mhm.
And I think that there's a really powerful opportunity in horror, especially that especially that marginalized people can recognize, for that to be turned into, no, this is simply somebody standing up for what is right. This is
Right.
simply setting boundaries around what they want. This is somebody claiming their own personal power. You know, when Ripley walks into the room at the end of Aliens in the loader suit, the power suit.
Yeah.
Like, she's not attacking the queen, she's defending
Right.
humanity. You know, when Indiana Jones punches a Nazi, he's not attacking that Nazi, he's defending the world. You
Mhm.
know, when Carrie, I'm going to be really frank, when Carrie locks the doors and lets things fly, I don't
Mhm.
think she's attacking her classmates. I think she's defending herself.
Right. Hmm.
You
That's a
know,
way of looking at it. Oh, yeah.
we watched Carrie at the Carolina Theater of Durham last year, maybe the year before, I don't remember. And something that I really don't think the makers of that film expected when they made it, or intended when they made it, is that now, when you watch that movie in a theater with a bunch of people, when Carrie at the end like blows up the car and makes it flip,
Hmm.
uh, the audience burst into applause.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I think that back then they were expected to gasp in horror.
Right. But she's the hero in
Yeah.
yeah, so many people. There was this, have you ever seen this movie called Circle? It might even still be on Netflix. But in a nutshell, these people wake up or whatever and find themselves in this room. And you get the impression that maybe aliens or somebody they've gotten these people. And let's say there are 20 people in there. I think it might be more. And they're all different ages, races, genders, walks of life in this room. And so the premise or what they are in there to do is vote each other to their death. So
Hmm.
as a group of people, individual people, whatever, it's the consensus is whoever that'll be the person who dies. Well, there's one scene where it's just a few people left, and this man convinces a woman to kill herself for him. And the way he talks her into it is so cringy because he's not lying or anything. He's just saying, it'll be okay for you to do this for me. And she does. And it just, that one scene left such an impact on me. I mean, it's not the best movie at all, but that that privilege, that entitlement to life,
Mm-hmm.
to the point of I do believe I can convince this person, and I'm going to convince this person to die for me, was just really something that always stayed with me. But
Yeah.
yeah.
At a talk that I did for the Orange County Public Library one time, I was talking about horror movies that make you think about identity and experience. And in college, I watched a movie that was shockingly more complex than I expected, called Redneck Zombies.
Oh wow.
And
Never heard of it.
and it's a trashy movie and it's not good.
Mhm.
But there is a moment in it where the one black character says aloud, "I'm not going to do that. I'm the only black guy in the movie."
Mhm.
And as like a 20-year-old, I was just like, "Oh my
That piano
gosh."
right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just like a moment of revelation for me,
Mhm.
you know? And I feel like when a movie is aware of those things and makes sure to point that out so that we've had decades now of
Mhm.
unspoken reinforcement of
Yeah.
expectations and roles and essentialism of all types. And
Mhm.
so anytime a movie, especially one we don't expect it from, can point out that and comment on it, I feel
Yeah.
like that provides an opportunity for that lightning bolt moment of realization for somebody out there in the world. I love that.
Don't you love how you can get that from a movie that's not necessarily a good movie, but
Yeah, yeah,
it just kind of goes to the whole thing that there's stories out there for anybody, and even a piece of the story can be
hmm,
changing, in the world.
yeah.
So here's another question I have for you. Do you see queer horror, and that could be, stories in any way, moving away from metaphor or deepening it?
I think my answer is yes. I think that some filmmakers, I think it depends on the filmmaker. And a lot of times I think it probably depends on where their funding comes from. And
Okay.
I hate saying that, But
Mhm.
if somebody's making something for a major streaming platform,
Mhm.
and that streaming platform has, say, just been acquired by a billionaire conservative, then I think that they have to find ways to subvert
Yeah.
the machine that is allowing them to make the art in the first place.
Yeah.
And they're certainly not the first people to have to figure out ways to talk around their sponsors.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's fine.
Mhm.
Kudos to them for making the effort. You look at something like The Babadook,
Mhm.
and it's sure it's a movie about grief, and it's a movie that a lot of queer people can identify with,
Mhm.
and it leans very hard into the metaphor parts of it.
Yeah.
Um, and then you look at something like They Them, the Kevin Bacon horror movie on Peacock, and
Mhm.
it is very out there and explicit. It like wears its queerness on its sleeve, and it
Right.
says we are here to talk about how conversion therapy is messed up
Yeah.
and the way the conversion therapy is killing people.
Mhm.
And or you look at Us, or you
Mhm.
look at
American
uh,
Horror Story, that second aside.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you
Mhm.
know, the ways that I feel like it depends on. Also, it depends partly on for whom did the people making it make it.
Yeah.
Did they
Mhm.
make it for people that they thought need to learn this lesson and will not be aware of it if they're trying to sneak their vegetables into the mac and cheese?
Mhm.
Or is it made for the people who know this and need to be validated?
Yeah.
And there is tremendous value in both. You know,
Yeah. Mhm.
by sheer chance, I watched a snippet of an interview with Rod Serling from the 60s the other day, in which he was asked, do you think that including social themes in stuff like The Twilight Zone actually changes people's minds? And he said, yes, I do. And I think that the ones where we present it as metaphor are probably more effective
Mhm.
because in the long run, he was like in the
Yeah.
short term, the bigots will watch those episodes and say, "Oh, I see what they're saying, and I'm not like that, so I'm okay." And then they'll turn around and be bigoted. It's
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
but because they were willing to watch that episode, when they might not watch an episode that is more explicit in its commentary because
Right.
they'll feel attacked,
Right.
then there is a chance that that message will seep in for those people. And
Yeah.
later they'll realize, oh, they were talking to me.
Mhm.
And he was very explicit about, like, yes, I write subtle episodes to influence people who don't know they need to be influenced.
Oh, okay.
And I
Yeah.
think that there is plenty of horror like that, and plenty of horror that says, why don't we just like validate what we're all feeling right now and talk about it. You look at
Mhm.
like I saw the TV Glow, and
Yeah.
that's a movie that is to validate queer people.
Mhm. 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 Good. Okay, we're running towards the end of the interview, but I do want to ask you because one of the things that we all need and want desperately are, of course, recommendations.
Oh,
And
yes.
so, who are some queer horror and sci fi writers you think more people should be reading?
Okay, so if you like cosmic horror, I'm going to have some images to show too here in a second.
Yes, please.
But yeah, if you like cosmic horror, if you wish you could love Lovecraft still, which is the position I'm in,
Yes.
then I recommend Manly Wade Wellman. He
Okay.
wrote really, really progressive cosmic horror in the middle of the 20th century. Specifically, he has a series uh, called the John Thurston stories.
Okay.
There's a collection of them called Third Cry to Legba.
Mhm.
And those are stories he wrote about essentially a paranormal private eye in
Okay.
the middle of the 20th century living in New York City.
Mhm.
And from the get go, these are stories that validate immigrant experiences, they validate minority experiences, they validate a lot of marginalized identities. He explicitly says things like, there are other cultures that have abilities and powers that exceed ours, and
Mhm.
we are just too ignorant to have figured this out. And also, we should not go try to steal that from them. And
Oh.
like he has stories about people who are racists getting
Mhm.
taken down by the people that they are trying to be racist towards, and John Thurston just being like, "Sounds like justice served to me."
Oh,
Um,
I would love to read something like that now.
yeah,
Yeah. in this
And
film.
Funston was an influential character in a lot of ways. Wellman was kind of a writer's writer in a lot of ways. Chris Carter, who created the X-Files,
Mhm.
based Fox Mulder in part on the John Funston stories.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's basically like imagine super woke Mulder in 1950s New York City as a paranormal private eye. It's so good. I love those stories.
That sounds like so much fun. And
Yeah.
also, I feel like I'm gonna be happy at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The more of them I read, the happier I was. I loved them.
Okay.
Um, yeah. In one of the novels, he had a different series of characters, of stories and some novels about a character named John the Balladeer. And
Okay.
he's this guy who wanders mid-century Appalachia with fighting supernatural monsters, but with nothing other than a silver-stringed guitar. It's an incredible series of stories. And in one of them, he takes somebody to meet like the old Native American guy who lives over the holler, and they get there, and the old Native American guys at first kind of presented as this very stereotypical view, except like
Mhm.
3 sentences in, he's like, "Actually, I'm a PhD, and I'm just yanking your chain," and and it's just like he gets that sometimes you just want to mess with the white people. So
Yeah.
it's just so much fun. I love how open his perspective is on making sure that everybody in it is a human being, you know. So love those. Um, Another one that I really, really love is Zen E. Rockland's Flowers for the Sea.
Did I read that? No, no, no. I don't think I read that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
It's from maybe like 5 years ago, and it's a novella. It's a cosmic horror story about someone on a ship that is trying to survive the eco apocalypse.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And was the eco apocalypse a result of human failings, or was it brought upon the earth by entities that want to change what the earth is like? And at the
Mm.
same time, it's this like deeply personal story of the very personal horrors that this perspective character is experiencing as she tries to survive like the end of the world. It's
Mhm.
amazing. It's so good. It's beautiful. It's hauntingly written. It's just like reads like poetry.
Oh,
um
wow.
oh, it's so beautiful. Love that book.
Okay.
um so I'm going to share my screen really quickly so that I
Yes.
can share some covers for stuff. Oh, I'm not allowed to share.
Oh, let me give you let's see here. So participant, I need to make you a co-host. All right, there you go. You should be able to do it.
Okay. I'm going to allow that, and I'm going to share my PowerPoint screen. So, a really amazing horror film that I watched last year, maybe 2 years ago, is Knife Plus Heart. It was made like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe, but
Mhm.
it is set in the 1980s, and it has this very authentic 1980s feel. It is about a bunch of queer people making a queer erotic thriller in France in the 1980s, and
Mhm.
somebody is stalking and killing them.
Oh,
And it has just like a bevy of queer identities, racial identities, gender identities. There's so many different identities and experiences included in it, so nobody ever feels singled out by what's happening. And it is very much about like we know what's happening to us, and the world outside of queerness is never going to believe us.
okay.
So,
Okay.
so good. Love it.
Wow. Okay.
They, them, highly recommend. I actually love the way that it takes so many tropes and turns them on its head. It's so good. It's a really, really powerful little film. And it's a Blumhouse horror movie, so you know it's going to be pretty good.
Okay. All right, I'll check that out.
Jennifer's Body, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I love Jennifer's Body. Apparently, there is maybe really going to be a sequel that's going to really make explicit the queerness in
Oh,
Jennifer's Body. So, yeah,
yeah.
I would love that. I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites to recommend with a big asterisk because there are people who would watch it and find it not empowering, but I think it's amazing. It is a gay rom-com horror movie about a guy who does not realize that his new boyfriend is also a serial killer.
What is this on? Is this on a streaming service? I
The
can look it
last time, yeah,
up.
the last time I checked, which it's been a while, the last time I checked, it was on Shutter.
Okay.
But it's been a long time, so it might not be there anymore.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Um,
Let's look it
but I really, really love You're Killing Me. I saw it at Nevermore one year years ago, and then it got picked up for streaming after that,
up.
like years later. And it's really funny. The romance in it is very sweet. As his straight friends start figuring out what's happening, the serial killer boyfriend starts knocking off the straight friends.
Oh, wow.
And so there are plenty of people who would watch it and be like, I don't know if this is good representation, but I thought it was amazing. I thought it was hilarious. So
Right. Okay,
I
good.
am somebody who loves a queer-coded villain.
Mhm.
Villains are powerful people, and
Yeah.
there are ways in which horror can use the power of
Mhm.
villainy to empower queer people, and I love it when that happens.
Yeah.
So
Me too.
I saw the TV Glow, of course, incredible.
Wonderful.
Oh, so good. Um,
It was wonderful and it was devastating.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We could not. We talked about it for hours after we
Yeah.
saw it. Just couldn't stop talking about it. Fledgling by Octavia Butler. What an incredible book. It is also one that I always kind of feel bad recommending to someone because I'm a little worried that they'll think that I'm like into what it presents as the relationship.
Oh, okay.
And but it is deeply troubling and
Hmm.
also like deeply emotionally affecting.
Hmm.
Um, it's just wild,
Yeah.
what a book. I don't know, and
I
it's
haven't read it in a
incredible.
long time, but I read it. I read it because I've read I think all of her books now, and
Yeah.
it's really good. Yeah.
Oh, incredible, incredible. The whole like she looks 12 thing is really
Yeah.
troubling,
Yes. Yes.
but
Very.
it's such a good book.
Hmm.
Of course, Lovecraft Country. I'm sure we've all seen Lovecraft Country, but I always like to recommend it just in case,
Yeah, and I saw
because
the movie.
in my opinion, the TV show is better than the book.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I've heard
I,
that. I haven't
it
read
just
the whole book, just only a couple of of the stories, but I really enjoyed the show, and I've heard people say that they like the show more than the book, and I've heard people say the opposite. So,
yeah.
hmm.
I think the TV show is bolder about talking directly about the experiences of those characters.
Yeah,
Parable of the Sower, Octavia
yeah,
Butler again. Oh my God, incredible.
hmm.
So good, just
It is.
incredible.
It's
And it
very.
feels so relevant. Like she really predicted where we're at.
Yes, scarily.
Yes.
Hmm.
Clive Barker's Nightbreed.
Yeah.
The rumor mill has it that the thing that Clive Barker and what's his face, the guy who did the Netflix TV show of Hannibal, uh, whose name has now escaped me,
Yeah.
are working on a TV series version of Nightbreed, and that
Oh,
would that would be incredible.
it would.
So
And there's so much mythos with that. So it's so much
yeah,
to do with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. I
Mhm.
really love those. Another great one. Um, Oh, it just slipped my mind. It was something that I was like, oh, I need to remember to mention this one at the end. Well, whatever. There's just so much great stuff out there. Oh, yes. Judith Sonnet. She's a trans horror writer. She also writes science fiction and other genres. She has a book called Low Blasphemy that is
Mhm.
about the experience of religious trauma.
Mhm.
And it is her writing is brutal. She is way higher on like the gore and brutality scale than I am as a writer.
Mhm.
But Low Blasphemy is a phenomenal book. She also has a book called R. Sarnath that
Mhm.
is specifically a cosmic horror book about the trans experience. And she says that it's her favorite and the one that she is the most proud of. She's an
Mhm.
incredible writer. We were at a horror convention together last year. I bought one of her books. I started reading it. I was like 3 pages in before I had to go tell her how good it was. Like
Oh
it
my.
was just like her writing is phenomenal. And so highly recommend Our Sarnath by Judith Sonnet. Oh, and if you haven't read it, Ballad of Black Tom by Victor LaValle,
Mhm.
incredible, absolutely incredible. Love it so much. Um, yeah, okay, I'm gonna stop there.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm not going to get any work done because I'm going to be reading. So, thank you, Michael, for making me lose my job.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, I want to say it has been an absolute pleasure interviewing you. This has just made me want us to get together and get with Michael. Remember when we did the Star Trek?
Yeah,
I just feel like I would like for us to get together and do and just we could just talk and just have great conversations. So
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Michael. I hope you join some of the other things we're getting ready
Oh,
to do.
yeah.
Welcome right now in, I think, the general room, but I will see you later on. And I'll also let you know about the recording once it's done.
Great.
All right, Michael, have a wonderful rest of the day and a wonderful VCon.
Thank you so much for having me. And you too.
Okay, thank you.